What's up, people? Welcome to week 9. Now, this is what's crazy. Okay, some of you might think this is still week 8. Okay, because uh, unbeknownst to me, when I got up this morning and uh, got dressed, I did not realize that. Look, I'm wearing exactly the same thing that I wore in the week 8 lecture, even though I recorded that 12 days ago on September 30th. Okay. Clearly, I get pretty repetitive in my outfit choices during the fall, even though it's not the fall. I'm like sweating over here. Okay. I mean, what is it? 75 degrees today. Yesterday I was outside playing soccer with my kid, my boy, and I was sweating. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. Okay. So, I mean, look, I even have the hat here, just so that way you don't freak out and think that's a totally different, that it's the same lecture that I'm lying to you. Look, here we go. Okay. All right. Actually, I want to do something even more. Watch this. What? Total shift. Okay. It was like that. Lightning flash. Boom. Okay. Plus, I'm hot anyways. So, this is nice. Okay, people. So, let's look at what we're doing today. I'm recording this in the morning, so there's probably gonna be people walking through my room talking like, "Oh my God, I'll be like, okay, hi." So don't ignore that. All right. Today we are. Yes, I want these files. I want to view these files later. Yep. Okay. So today is uh, week 9. We're talking about integrating quotes. Okay. Paraphrasing, kind of. Parenthetical citations, yes, and works cited page. Okay, those are the definitions that we're going to do. This week you're working on the first draft of essay 2, okay, which is you are writing an essay on your own topic, either a cause and effect, comparison, contrast, or classification essay, okay. But for this essay, you are going to need to have a source, okay? At least one outside source. Look, for this paper, you just need one source. But for paper 3, you're going to need 3, okay? So last week, you're supposed to figure out a topic, and you need to find a source for your topic, write an outline, and include the citation for the source. That's what you had to do last week, okay? Which I went over through all of these, okay? I went over all this stuff last week on finding a source, and I want it to be a library database source. Okay, if you are having trouble getting onto the Galileo, you need to make sure you're going on through GTC. Like, you're not going to GTC's website and just click on the library and click on Galileo. You have to actually sign in to Galileo and sign into your account and go to the library icon that you're already signed in order for they to give you access to Galileo's website. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. And if you're having problems, I can't help you with that. You need to call the library if you are logged in and you still can't get access. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so we did all that. We talked about copying, how to copy and paste your citation. I showed you that. So now, if you didn't watch last week's lecture, you need to make sure that you watch it, okay? I showed you all this, cite, and that, copy and paste, okay? All right, so, oh, this is the wrong PowerPoint. Hold on a second. Okay, hey, sorry, it was the correct PowerPoint, but I realized that I went too far. We stopped on slide number around here. All we did last week was talk about finding the source, finding the database, okay, and going through that. So today we're going to talk about quoting and paraphrasing and all that kind of good stuff. All right, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing sources. This is what we're going to do. It's on my wrong screen. Oh, here. There we go. All right, here we go. Quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing sources. Quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing sources. Okay, so when we quote, you're using the exact words of a source, and then you're using quotation marks to demonstrate that, to show that what you're saying, someone else has said, word for word. Okay. In your essay, since it's not a very long essay, we do not want long quotes. We want short quotes. Okay. Shorter, more concise quotes, not these super long quotes. Okay. It shouldn't be longer than a line, really. Maybe a line and a half the most. Okay. And you want to, as I'll show you in a little bit, you want to integrate the quotes so that way they fit smoothly with your sentences. Okay. You can't just have a quote by itself, because a quote by itself is called a drop quote, and those are incorrect. You cannot just have a sentence begin with a quotation mark, have the quote, and then have a period and a quotation mark. Okay, like the whole sentence cannot be a quote. All right, so you have to create what's called a quotation sandwich. It's a very technical term, okay? You have to have a statement that introduces the quote. That's in the same sentence. At no point are you having a period until you have the quote, okay? All right, and so the quote in that same sentence is the filling of the sandwich, all right? And then you have some sort of interpretation explanation in the sentence for the most part, okay? If you have at least the statement that introduces it, you can have a period there after the quote, and then you can explain it, all right? So look, according to Smith and Jackson, one of out five drivers has driven while drowsy. I think that's incorrectly written. 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. This means that it is likely that we have been on the road at the same time as someone else who is too tired to drive and putting our lives at danger. Okay, so this is what you would consider to be a quote sandwich. Okay. Yeah. All right. We have an introductory clause according to Smith and Jackson, and then we have the quote. Look, we have according to Smith and Jackson, comma. We have a comma before the quote. Quotation mark. 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. Look, there's no period there. We have quotation mark, then parentheses of what page on your document this came from. If you got a PDF, the PDF should be labeled what page. And then we do a period. Okay. And then what comes next is an explanation of why this quote is important. You can't just have a quote by itself. You have to discuss why this quote is important and what it means. You have to interpret the quote for your reader. You can't just assume your reader will get it, because they won't. Quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Okay, so a paraphrase is restating in your own words the written or spoken words of someone else. That means it's totally in your own words. Okay, it's not uh, uh, it's not that you steal 5 of their words and use it as your own. It is completely your own words. You are restating what it means, maybe in much more understandable language. Okay, making sure that they understand that let's say, like, if you want to quote something that's sort of has a lot of jargon in it, or is kind of like overly complicated. All right. Instead, you put it in your own words to simplify it, maybe. Paraphrasing is preferred over directly quoting sources because you want the majority of your essays to be in your own words and writing style. Now, if you paraphrase something, you still need to what's called cite it, okay? Which is you still need to put the author's last name at the end of the sentence in parentheses, okay? So if you are paraphrasing, um, you would still you do something like, uh, let's say we're going to paraphrase this quote up here. 1 out of 5 drivers has. Let's go ahead and fix that error. 1. Okay. Okay, so you can do it two ways. You always have to state who says this quote. Okay. Like in their research, Smith and Jackson have found out that almost 20% of people have driven drunk at least once in their lives. Okay. All right. So this is paraphrasing because they didn't say 20%. They said 1 out of 5. But you know what? Guess what though? I am um uh I know math. I'm just an English teacher. Okay. I know math. All right. I know 1 out of 5 is 20%. Okay. All right. And now they say drowsy, so really it's not driving drunk. Okay. It's driven sleepy, driven while sleepy at least once in their lives. Okay. Now I could also not mention Smith and Jackson at all. Okay. I can say research has found that almost 20% of people have driven while sleepy at least once in their lives. Okay. Now before I put the period here, okay, look, I did the research. I did the work. I read the research and I found that Smith and Jackson said this, okay? So as a student, I need to communicate to my readers and to my teachers that this comes from someone else, okay? So I need to put in parentheses Smith and Jackson. Okay. Well, really though, for a parenthetical citation, I would just put Smith because actually I'd put Jackson because it's going to be it's alphabetical, so it's going to be Jackson. Okay. All right. Researchers found that almost 20% of people have driven while sleeping at least once in their lives. Jackson. So this tells us that Jackson said it, not this person who's writing it and paraphrasing it, but that it's not a direct quote. It's a paraphrase. It's an interpretation of a direct quote. Okay. So you are not plagiarizing by simply putting this person's last name in this parentheses. You are also demonstrating that you did the research because in your paper, while you have to have one outside source, I have to know when you're using that source, which means you have to cite it. And citing it means putting the last name in. You can either do it like this, where you mention the author's name in the paper itself, or you can put it at the end in a parenthetical citation, which is including parentheses. That's what parenthetical means. Parentheses is the noun. Parenthetical is an adjective. Okay. So you can either mention or you can put it in a parentheses. Okay. If this is found on one specific page of your research, like let's say, let's see if I have a PDF of anything. Let's say like you have this like PDF that you downloaded. Let's see my computer open it up. Here we go. If the PDF has page numbers, but for some reason my PDF is not opening this up. If it has page numbers, then use the page numbers. If it doesn't have page numbers, you don't need to put page numbers, like especially if it's on a website. Sometimes they don't have page numbers. I was trying to pause it to show you, but oh well, done with pausing. All right, so back to this. If you're not sure if you're doing it correctly, you need to email me what you're done. You need to be like, hey, Mr. Byers, can you look at this real fast? Because I'm going to grade you with the expectation that you're doing it correctly. Okay, So if you think you're not, then you need to let me know. Okay. And then summarizing is a little bit different than paraphrasing, because whereas a paraphrase restates the original material in its entirety, a summary states only the main points of the original source in a much briefer form. Okay. So like if you're summarizing the entire thesis of something, but honestly though, look, it's cited the same way. Okay, cited the same way. All right, so you need to integrate your quotes, paraphrases, and summaries and lead into them. Okay, use a variety of present tense verbs to introduce source material. So Smith and Jackson acknowledge, they concede, they confirm, they argue, introduces, she notices, reports. These are words that should come before the quote, okay, or the paraphrase. All right, you have to, state that that either these people said it, um, or if you're paraphrasing it and you're putting it as a part of your own writing, then you don't have to put this there. But if you're definitely quoting it, so if you notice, let's see, okay, according to Smith and Jackson, quote, 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. Parentheses. Okay, notice this parenthetical citation is inside the period. We have according to, so this is our signal phrase, according to Smith and Jackson. Then we have, quote, 1 out of 5 drivers. Now look, you could, another thing, let's take this quote. Okay, so you could write, research conducted in whatever year this was published, 2010, found that, okay, found that quote, 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. Okay. Okay. So you can integrate your sentence so it works smoothly in a sentence without even like saying, well, the author said this or the author says that. You can just say research conducted into this and found that 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. If you write it this way, then you don't need a comma after that because it's all part of the sentence, and you don't need to capitalize this quote right here. All right. Now, if you said this though, all right. So according to research conducted in 2010, the report says now we have says, we have a verb. After a verb, we do need a comma, quotation mark, and we capitalize 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. Okay. Quotation mark, citation, page number, if there is one, parenthetical citation closed, then period. Okay. According to research conducted in 2010, the report says, quote, 1 out of 5 drivers. And then if we preface our quote with a verb, then we would have a comma, quotation mark, and capital O. If that quote is just integrated seamlessly into a sentence that we start to write, and it comes after no verb, there's not a verb before it, then we don't have a comma and we don't capitalize. Research conducted in 2010 found that 1 out of 5 drivers has driven while drowsy. Okay. If you write a sentence using a quote and you're not sure about it, you can copy and paste just that sentence and send it to me, and I can tell you if you're doing it correctly. All right. Keep going. All right, we discussed. All right. Parenthetical citation, MLA. Modern Language Association citation is the standard for academic writing. Anytime you reference information or ideas that are not your own, you must provide proper parenthetical citation. If you fail to cite your sources or incorrectly cite your sources, your work will be considered plagiarized. Okay, so whenever you turn a paper in to turnitin.com, it runs it and looks for quotes all over the world. Okay, and it picks up quotes that you use for within quotation marks, and it picks up quotes that are word for word the same that other people have written where there is no quotation marks used. Okay, so if you copy and paste or you type in word for word a quote from somebody into your paper and you do not use quotation marks and include a citation, then it is invalid and is considered plagiarism, and you will lose points on the paper, majorly lose points on the paper. Okay, so you cannot do that. You have to make sure that you always use, if it's a direct quote, you got to use quotation marks, and even if you're paraphrasing, you have to use a parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence, or it will be considered cheating. So you gotta make sure that you introduce source material in the present tense. It's always present, because even if the book was published in the 1800s, if I go to it, it's happening in this moment that I'm reading it. So it needs to be present tense. She argues, he writes, they discover that blah 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 blah. Okay, writes, states, shows, demonstrates, verbs and s's. Joan Smith agrees. Another researcher remarks, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. Paraphrase directly, quote, or summarize the source material and then include the author's name and page numbers in parentheses at the end of the sentence before the period. If there is no page number, then you don't include the page number. Do not include paragraph numbers. I don't know when this started, but kids have started doing this, and it's absolutely wrong. Do not include paragraph numbers. Only include page numbers if they are there. Joan Smith agrees that corporal punishment is not a legitimate form of discipline in schools. Or another researcher remarks, corporal punishment teaches children to solve problems with violence. Look, quotation mark, parenthetical citation, Hayes, and then we have a period. Okay. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, all corporal punishment should not be banned in schools. Okay. This source does not have a name. Therefore, it is the title of the article. Hey, good, how are you? It's the title of the article because there's no name, so that's fine. Okay, I demonstrated this actually last week, where you, on its own page, your page should say works cited, and it should have your one source that you're using for this paper, okay? And it should be double spaced. When we have 3 sources for essay 3, you will have them in alphabetical order. But for now, you just have one source, so it's just there. And I showed you last week how to copy and paste it. And you gotta make sure that it is, and like, look, these are, you can go through these yourself. This is if you're gonna write it yourself. But I mean, I showed you last week how to go to, look up the citation information on Galileo and copy and paste it. So you should be fine. All right, I actually showed you this last week. You find your article you want to read. You go over to Cite, and then you scroll down till you find the works cited, and then you copy it, and you paste it, okay? Now, the only difference is this. See here. Look. I take this, and I copy it, and I go to my paper. Let's just say this is my paper, okay? All right, you center it, You hit paste. Okay. So then this right here, your citation, go to justify. Okay. Now it's not ready yet though, because you got to make sure it's double spaced. Paragraph, double, before and after are at 0, 0, 0, double. Okay. Still not ready yet because we have something called a hanging indent. This first line is all the way to the left. It's all the way lined up. But the lines underneath it need to be indented. So what you do is, look, if you go to this second line, you hit tab, the whole thing pushes over. That's incorrect. So you go to the end of the previous line, the end of the line, and then hit tab, and it indents it. Same thing with the next line. You go to the end of this line, hit tab, until it indents it. That is correct. Okay. Now, because this is the last page of your paper, it will already have, if you have inserted page numbers correctly, it will already have your last name and the page numbers if you did it correctly. If you didn't do it correctly, then it won't be there. Okay, so you gotta make sure you do it correctly. So this should be really, this will say like Smith 4. If you've written 3 pages, this will say your last name, page 4, and this is a grade. I'll make sure that this is formatted correctly, because essay 3, you'll be doing this 3 times. Okay, so you gotta make sure that you can at least do this one accurate. Everything's double spaced. It says works cited at the top of the page. The top of the page is centered, but the citation itself is justify. And that you have a hanging indent. The first line is the entire length of the line, and the lines underneath it are indented correctly. Okay. Again, if you have problems with this, send me an email. Let me know. Talk to me. All right. I think that's it. Oops. For this current slide, this paper, you just need 1 source, but for paper 3, you'll need 3. You should have already found that source. You should have already found, figure out your topic, and you should be writing your rough draft now, this week. Okay. If you have any questions, email me. Let me know. Good luck to you. Peace out. Hasta la vista. And bye bye.